part of the reason that I offer these workshops is for people to get to know me a little bit better, to offer a little bit more support to couples wherever they may be at, for things that I know and I have seen that can be helpful. So that's what this is about. It's still not 4 o'clock. You know, I think that time is going by really fast, but it's not. And I thank you for your patience. I don't know how many people will attend live because, again, I think many couples don't want to be seen needing support or attending classes, which is something, you know, I would really like to shift the thinking around that. All right. It's now 4, and I don't want you to, the folks that have shown up, I don't want you to be sitting in the waiting room waiting for me to get started. So as I indicated in the email with the Zoom invite, thank you for receiving all 3 of my emails. I always feel like I'm bothering people. I did suggest to remove all distractions so that you can focus as attentively to this. Ideally, you and your partner are both with me now live. And if you are watching the replay, I encourage you to do so with your partner. And remove distractions such as children or dogs or screens. Remove all distractions. Welcome. You'll see me let folks in as they trickle in. I'm just going over housekeeping right now before we start. So remove all distractions. Attempt to leave your phone to the side. Ideally, you and your partner are seated in such a way that you can turn and face each other for the exercises that we do. And in general, I recommend, and I work with couples on using eye contact because it is the way our brains connect. So try to get yourselves in a position to face each other. I know it feels a little awkward at first, but you will see the power of it as we go on. So that's sort of the general housekeeping. I already said this, but I will repeat myself. Feel free for those watching live to comment your questions either to me in the comment. You can select who you are talking to. You can select who you want to send a message to, and you can send it to the group chat if you're comfortable doing that. You all are welcome to change your Zoom name, which I think is bottom left. So if you want to make yourself anonymous, there is someone in here who is Zoom user. I love that first name. I'm so hilarious. So you can rename yourself if you want to post it to the group, or you can select my name, host or Carolyn, and you can write your question if you want to. If you have a sensitive question or one that you don't want to be public, you're welcome to select me and do it privately to me. So I am going to answer all the questions at the end of this broadcast, if you will, the recording, so that I can just present the material. People can watch that. And then if they want to know the answers to questions, they can watch that to the end. So post your question. I'm not even going to look in the chat until the end. I will just make sure, I assume everybody can hear me because no one has said can't hear you. But otherwise, I will just leave the chat until the end. Okay, so welcome. I am thrilled that you're here. The most people signed up for this course, so I seem to have struck an area of interest for couples. So this is about using your attachment for good. We all have an attachment style. I'm going to go into detail with that, not too much detail. And our attachment is one of the things that both offers us the greatest opportunity for connection with our partner and causes us the most grief, because we don't know how to work with it positively, and ends up causing us problems. So that's what today is going to be about. Before I go there, I will just introduce myself. I'm Carolyn Sharp. Look at her, and she's cute. I am a licensed independent clinical social worker. I've been a therapist in the Seattle area for 25, 6 years. And I have been working with couples and working to build healthier relationships since that time. I am passionate about relationships because I started as a child and family therapist and saw the impact on kids when their parents did not have the capacity to help them build healthy relationships. So I am absolutely passionate and on fire to help build healthy relationships because I think, I know it is the greatest way to build a better world for our kids, our neighbors, ourselves, people around the world. And I won't go too down that road. My heart and thoughts are with people everywhere suffering as a result of misunderstandings and poor relationships. So I am super excited to share some of the secrets to the easiest and most powerful ways to create a healthy relationship. So this is my little preempt. This workshop today is a section of my coaching program, the Fired Up Marriage Accelerator. And I don't very often share this stuff to the broader public because it is my intellectual property and it is something I've worked very hard to create. But again, I want to help build relationships to those that are interested. Please do not share the recordings and the link to friends and neighbors. If you have someone you would like to have it, please send them my way and I would be happy to share it with them. And the reason is that you have to be in the right frame of mind in order for this to be most helpful. So I just ask that you respect my intellectual property and not just, broadcast it. So there's that. Best way to participate, watch it with your partner, remove devices and distractions, listen with curiosity. Some of you may be somewhat of an expert. You may have read a lot of stuff. You may have watched a lot of stuff about attachment, so you may know a few things. I encourage you to listen with curiosity because a lot of this stuff needs repetition. And if you are in the mindset that, yeah, lady, I know that, you're not going to take it in the way that it can be most powerful to you. So try to listen with curiosity, bring a sense of play and do the exercises as weird as it may feel. They are designed out of my many years of experience of what helps couples the most. And then comment any questions. If you're not watching it live, feel free to DM or email me with your questions and I will make sure to answer them. And then have fun. I don't like to be bored. I don't like to bore people. So what we're going to talk about today: what makes us as people, attachment and what it means, how our attachment comes alive in relationship, what did we learn as kids, and what do we need to teach each other so that we have healthier attachments? So this is the patterns that come alive in us and what we want them to be, how we want them to be different, acceptance for each other and support for each other, and then inspiring each other toward change. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Woo! Who's excited? Okay, so I share this, and I think I might be in the way. This is my little graphic of my program, and I'm just sharing this with you very quickly so that you know the language that I'm using. So the Fired Up Marriage Accelerator, my bigger program, is based on this idea that, like a fire, a relationship needs four main things. It needs to be built on a healthy foundation. A fire needs a fireplace. It needs a container. And that foundation is the creation of shared purpose and goals that you have together, so you know where you're going and why you're together. The oxygen, which is the section you are receiving today, is acceptance and support for each other's needs, our attachment needs. Fuel is communication, security, and connection. That's the thing that feeds us in relationship and keeps that fire burning. And the thing that lights the fire, that gets us connected to each other in the first place, is the spark of interest and attraction from shared interest, activities, and desires. So that is the sort of summary of what the Fired Up Marriage Accelerator is. I am offering you today the oxygen that your relationship needs. Just wanted you to have that so that you knew where I was coming from. All right, now I'm going to move my little picture up so that hopefully you guys can see everything. So oxygen, the understanding attachment and acceptance. So The reality is that we were all taught about relationships, whether explicitly or not. We were born into relationship. We are damaged and broken in relationship, and we are healed through relationship. We learn about the world through our relationships in terms of what our parents, how our parents or caregivers sort of oriented us with whether the world was safe or unsafe, whether people to be trusted or not trusted, whether all of the stuff about money, about sex, about time, about relationships, about emotions, all of it is learned through relationship. And the ways we learn to be in relationship influences all of our ways of being present to each other now, both to our romantic partners, which is what I'm talking about today, but to our parents, to our colleagues, to our friends, to our neighbors. All of that is learned through our parents or our caregivers. Learning about this, going back quickly, and this isn't about parent blaming or anything like that. It's learning to identify the patterns that exist going all the way back, because if you pay attention in the right ways, you can notice your interaction patterns with your neighbors, with your colleagues, with your partner, all have a common thread that may be about, people are out for something, or you can't trust other people. If you want something done right, do it yourself. These are all orientations to things that have their basis in attachment. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So learning to understand that pattern within yourself and for your partner helps you understand, accept, and work with each other with more care, intimacy, and connection. And sort of the phrase and saying that I say a lot in this program is the relationship of your imagination and dreams is within your grasp. And this is what I am here to help you do. And if you listen to this and do the exercise and do it with full faith to really understand each other, you will notice an improvement in your relationship just from doing this. Promise. Okay. So that's me and my now 19-year-old daughter. That's Margaret. I just talked to her today. She called me from college. It's the sweetest thing ever. Anyway, so we are all raised in relationships, and it's through these relationships that our emotional worlds are shaped and laid down in our brains. Like the examples I used, and here are some more. Margaret is and she knows that I'm talking about her because I just talked to her today. Margaret is a sensitive, emotional girl. Any wonder she's the daughter of a therapist. So she feels her feelings big. And it took some, navigating how I helped her learn to deal with that. And so left unchecked, if I had matched her emotionality, her big reaction to a crayon breaking or something like that, it would have taught her one thing. Because I'm trained as a therapist and because I knew what that was, I was able to help her lay down her emotional reactions in a different way and create a sort of balanced view of emotions and what to do with them. I think very highly of myself. It's still a work in progress. And Margaret had many words about what it's like to be the daughter of a therapist, depending on the day, what she felt about that. But all of this is as examples, speak to the power that our caregivers had on how we view the world, how we view ourselves, how we view relationships, how we view work, how we view time and what time is for, and money and what money is for and what money means. All of this is laid down in relationship. So understanding who we are, who I am, and how we became ourselves holds infinite power in our relationships. Because the reality is, as I'm sure you all know, being in an intimate relationship, a committed intimate relationship, is the hardest thing that we do. We are face to face living a life with another human being, and human beings are tricky. That is putting it very nicely. I'm really impressed. I haven't sworn yet, I don't think. We're a flippin' disaster, really, of a species, and we're in a good month for what a disaster human beings are to one another, and it's heartbreaking. So we each have a, we have our genetics of how we, how our bodies work. We also have genetics about how our brain works. And then we have our attachment of how we perceive the world and how we interact with the world. And you take two humans with their different genetics and their different brains and their different orientation to emotion and relationship and all of that, and you match them together and you create a life, and you've got challenges. Having an understanding and having curiosity and compassion for, oh, you learned that in order to get attention, praise, affection, a good job, you had to be perfect. You had to achieve. You had to be doing. It wasn't enough to just be. You had to do in order to earn affection. Knowing that about my partner, it's going to make a lot of sense then why he or she or they is super sensitive to criticism, is distrustful of gifts without strings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So having that understanding teaches you about your partner in a way that explains a lot of their idiosyncrasies and the behaviors that probably cause the two of you challenges, as well as the behaviors in you that cause the two of you challenges. Once again, if you have questions about anything I'm saying, put it in the chat, either to the group or to me personally. You can click on me and write it to me individually, and I will answer all questions at the end after I go through the slides. So our attachment systems are continually interacting with one another. You have yours, I have mine, and together they interact. So there's my little pretty Venn diagram these are my brand colors that that coral, the navy blue and the light blue that you've seen. Those are my brand colors. Ta-da. Anyway, information you really didn't need. Our attachment systems interact. So each of us has a style of relating called an attachment style, which is based on how we were parented, as well as what we see that's supposed to say see between our parents. Typo, which I've read these slides 100 times. I don't find a typo until I'm presenting it. Anyway, these attachment styles interact in our relationship with one another, and it is expected for there to be overlap and conflict. So there are ways that these work well together, and there are ways that they really don't in how our attachment needs interact with one another. So you may need constant, or not constant, but regular affection, and I may need regular space. This is true story. You may need a true story in terms of my husband and I. I am someone who I lean to the avoidant attachment style. He leans to the anxious attachment style. I'm going to explain all of this later. So his attachment needs are around connection. And when he's overstimulated or tired or feeling insecure or whatever, he needs connection. When I'm dysregulated and upset, I need time alone. Early in our relationship, there was a lot of bumping into this because he would see me upset and he would offer me a hug. I don't want a hug when I'm upset. Last thing I want. I would see him upset and I would give him space, not what he wants. We had to learn how to work with those. We had to learn how to recognize and work with those. So one of the things I want to say about your attachment styles, yours and your partners, when I say your, I'm talking about both of you in your relationship. There are multiple of this person's name that are coming. So hopefully it's one after the other. So welcome to the people that are joining now. I'm going to answer questions at the end, pop them in the chat, either to me individually or to the larger group. And welcome. So attachment styles are not a diagnosis. There's a lot in current media and social media about attachment theory that indicates that people with anxious attachment are more unhealthy than people with avoidant attachment. The only healthy way to be is to be securely attached. All of that's crap. There's my first swear word. I made it. How long did I make it? 20 minutes. And crap isn't really even a swear word, is it? Anyway, it's not a diagnosis. there is not one way to be healthy. You can be insecurely attached and be healthy. I am not fully securely attached as an individual. I am on the avoidance side of secure. And in different moments, in different days, I may look way more avoidant. Same is true of my husband. You don't need to be secure in your attachment style in order to have a secure functioning relationship, because a secure functioning relationship is the ultimate goal, which is that regardless of each of your individual attachment styles, that your relationship function securely, which means that you are committed to fairness, mutuality, and justice in your relationship, and you are committed to working together to try and do your best to meet each other's relationship needs. And I emphasize relationship needs because, again, codependence is having a moment on social media where people are confusing interdependence with codependence, and that I shouldn't have to meet my partner's needs. That's their job. You should come to your relationship fully healthy. And the truth is that that's impossible. We all have junk in the trunk of our relationship psychology. We all carry some baggage of relationships. We were not, I don't know very many people, including my own kids, who were taught perfectly what it is to be healthy in relationship. There are always bad examples, and kids coming up now have a whole pile of bad examples through social media of what relationships look like. And the research coming out of what COVID is going to have done to us relationally, I am fascinated to see that relationship come up. Anyway, so the goal is to create a secure functioning relationship regardless of each of your individual attachment styles. So you can have an insecure form of attachment, but together you create a relationship that functions securely. So, okay. So what is secure functioning? And I just touched on it, but I'll touch on it a little bit more. Secure functioning is always the goal. And while we each come to our primary relationship, that's your relationship with each other, with styles of attachment that are insecure, the goal of any primary romantic relationship is to feel safe, mutually beneficial, fair, and just. That should be supportive of each other's growth and development as individuals, as the individual defines it, not as the partner defines it, but as the individual defines it, because the truth is we can't change another person. We can only change ourselves. So you may recall, for those who were here from the beginning, one of the things we're going to be talking about is inspiring each other toward change rather than pressuring each other toward change. That comes through true acceptance. And that is the goal of part of this training, is to help you understand each other so you can accept each other. So you want to allow each other, you want to work to make it safe for each other to be yourselves, rather than feel like you have to perform or you have to be a certain way in order to get your partner's love or care. And these are aspirational goals. You're not going to, there's not a finish line where you get to secure functioning and then you're good and you can rest. This is one of the mistakes many people make, is to think that they are done with their relationship. They don't need to work on it anymore. A healthy relationship, if you have friends that seem like they have the ideal relationship, they're either working on it regularly or they're pretending. Because healthy relationships take a lot of work, and that is the truth. And so, to summarize, the phrase that I have come up with to sort of summarize what secure functioning is, it is that there is room to make mistakes, lose each other, return and reconnect. There are going to be continual misattunements and reattunement, misattunement, reattunement, and I will get into this more. One of the things I will say is, when I have taught classes and I have people, I can see people's faces on the screen. I like to, I can see when people have questions, and I generally like to engage. But I'm trying, like I said to the folks who got here right at the start, I'm trying out this no videos on, no names, no live interaction with participants to see if more people feel comfortable attending, because I've heard from some folks that the privacy thing is an issue. So we're trying this out, but I feel like I'm just blabbering at you. So hopefully this is interesting. All right. So how do you do this? Using your attachment to power your connection. You want to first know yourselves. So understand your history and your partner's history to explain their relationship behaviors. So they're being controlling about money. Where does that come from? It comes from childhood. Understanding that can lead you to have more compassion and understanding, so that the tension lifts a little bit about their controllingness about money. I'm making something up that I have seen before in couples, that it usually comes from a fear response. Knowing that your partner is fearful, you can be compassionate and understanding, and that allows them to not need to be so afraid, because they feel like you support them and they relax a little bit. That sounds a little too easy. I recognize it does take work. I've created a whole coaching program to help couples actually build those responses. But that is the first step. Know yourselves, know your history with interest and compassion. Then, using those experiences, you get clear on what we need. So you each have driving relationship needs. So there's been books, the 5 love languages, that sort of get at that. But usually there's some core vulnerabilities or core relationship needs: needing to feel accepted, feel worthy of love, knowing that your partner's not going to abandon you. So there's abandonment, there's worth, there's unconditional love, there's safety, feeling safe in relationships, safe to feel yourself. There are some core relationship needs that usually people's issues fall into. And listening to, understanding each other's experience in relationship can help you identify, all right, your core need is feeling worthy of love. And so your sensitivity about criticism really goes back to feeling worthy of love. And so my job is to make you feel worthy of love, that even when I'm irritated with you, I let you know that I love you. That's simplified. Together, then, this is me moving on. You create a plan. You work together to proactively meet driving needs and develop the safety and trust to rewire our attachment, because through that secure functioning relationship, you can rewire each other so that you learn to let your defenses down, relax, and become connected without all of the defenses up. Identify the areas of growth. So where are the sticking points? And these usually are where our 2 driving needs intersect in an unhelpful way. I gave the example of my husband likes hugs. I like hugs as well. But when he's really stressed, a hug is the fastest way to help him calm down in our relationship. And I'm someone who needs some time alone to regulate my nervous system. Those can, we have figured out proactive ways, but those 2 needs sometimes still cause hurt feelings, misunderstandings, misattunements, because if I'm dysregulated and he's dysregulated at the same point, and he really needs a hug, and I am not in a place where I can give a hug, we can have problems. So understanding where are the sticky places, that allows you to create a plan. And so Jeff and I have a plan for when that occurs. So then you, using understanding and acceptance, you work to slowly and patiently build secure functioning without expectations of radical change. So the purpose that I'm referencing, I referenced that at the beginning in the Fired Up program. That first step that I go through with couples is helping them identify, what's our relationship for? Why are we together? Not in the, what the fuck are we doing? Oh, there's swear number 2, but in the, what is our relationship for? Because we all need a reason to be doing something. We need at work, we have goals that we're shooting for. And when we feel like sleeping in on a Monday morning, we remember our goals, and that gets us to work. relationships need the same thing. Why do we go to the gym? Why do we train? Why do we take a language course? Why do we, we have reasons, we have goals for everything that we do. I help couples articulate their purpose and their goals so that when things get hard, they remember why they keep doing the work. So you integrate all of this information into your purpose so that you're building toward secure functioning without the expectations of it changing overnight, because it took, if you're 30 years old, it took 30 years to get you to today. It's going to take some time to get you moving toward a different reality in your attachment system. Okay, so next I want to share a little bit about attachment styles. Like I said, creating a solid understanding of who we are right now is the first step. And so as you listen to this, I want you to think about yourself, and I want you to think about your partner in terms of your experiences. And I'm going to go into this in greater detail in the coming slides. But there are attachment generally lives along a spectrum, with secure functioning in the middle. And there's a slide that sort of illustrates it in a big circle, rather than it being just on a straight line, because it's much more three-dimensional than this. But there are three common forms of attachment. There is a fourth, but that is sort of outside the common forms, and that is really a result of someone going through pretty significant trauma in their upbringing. And so most therapists don't really talk about that fourth one, which is called disorganized attachment, in the sort of common discussions about attachment, because it is pretty unusual. All right, so there is anxious attachment. And people with anxious attachment generally learn to manage stress through connection, reassurance, and presence. That is the thing that makes them go back to baseline in relationship. Contact with a partner is how adults who have anxious attachment restore their emotional equilibrium. So if we have a fight and I am I have an anxious attachment style, I'm going to want to come to you and have us resolve that conflict. I'm going to want to know that we're okay. I'm going to be wanting to re-engage and make sure things are settled before I'm able to calm down. Avoidant attachment, on the other hand, those folks experience relational connections as demanding of their resources. Not necessarily negatively demanding of their resources, but they experience it as demanding of resources, tiring. So they sort of reach their max, and often need to restore emotional equilibrium by being alone. So if we have a conflict and I am on the avoidance side of attachment, I'm going to need distance. So in conflict, I may withdraw. I may go quiet. I may leave the room. I may leave the house. I may just shut down. That's sort of an avoidance style of attachment. I need time. I need space. I need quiet in order to get myself feeling okay, because I have become my resources have drained. And then in secure attachment, the third, people with secure attachment have sort of the ability to be both independent of and in connection with their relationship. While that sounds really ideal, because they can move between them, they may swing between them. And people over idealize secure attachment because it sounds better. But those folks have challenges too in relationships, and they can swing based on their partner's response, which isn't necessarily all that predictable or helpful. Right. So I'm going to go into greater detail in the formation of this. So how is anxious attachment formed? I talk about this in terms of parenting. Oh, there's another typo. That children, this is my sloppy way of talking about it, and every therapist, psychologist, attachment professional talks about it in different ways, that people are typically overparented or underparented. Anxious attachment kids fall under this, are generally overparented. too much closeness, helicopter parenting, or a parent who was working through their own emotional stuff through their children. So there might have been emotional, what's called enmeshment, where there's too much closeness. So high degrees of connection and attention that might in fact be a little bit intrusive from the parent. So children who develop anxious attachment often had parents or a household that vacillated between effective caregiving and intrusive reactions to their child's needs. That helicopter parenting, or that parenting that is getting their own emotional needs met through their kids. Often parents have they can have some mental health issues or some relational instability. And generally speaking, all of these attachment styles are inherited through generations. And there are some cultural norms inherent to this. So different communities can look like their attachments are different, and can have attachment styles based on the cultural norms of that community. So again, I want to emphasize that these are not pathological responses or pathological people or ways of being. They're just styles. So you want to work with the style as it is and not make your partner's attachment style the problem, but a feature of, like their height or their speed, speaking or reading or running or whatever it is. It's just a facet of your partner's being. So the inconsistent contact can create anxiety and fear for the child around their needs, which can result in a clinging response. Like, come to me, I need to know that we're okay, be next to me, reassure me. That often gets called needy. A phrase you'll hear me say a lot is having needs is not the same as being needy. We all need what we need. It just looks different in different formats. So an anxious attachment style is marked by a need and preference for contact with their partner. So that's anxious attachment in a nutshell. And obviously, because this is an hour and a half, this is simplistic and brief. I could talk for hours about attachment and how it shows up and what it looks like. So next, avoidant attachment, how avoidant attachment is formed. So these are the folks that are underparented. So a person with a more avoidant attachment style is generally someone who was parented with more freedom or emphasis on independence than was fully supportive of their development. So if you were, the expression from my generation was latchkey kid, you were sent home, you had a key around your neck and you got yourself a snack, and because both of your parents worked, or you had parents who had so much going on emotionally that they really couldn't attend to your needs, or culturally, kids were to be seen and not heard, or emotion is weakness. These all might result in an avoidant attachment style. So as a child, that kid spent more time alone than was always helpful, and learned to take care of their emotional needs rather than having the consistent support that they needed. So it could be that parents weren't around. It could be that they were discouraged from having needs, that they were shamed about having needs. There are many different many different sort of forms of underparenting. And again, this is not about blaming the parents, because all parents do the best they can. All humans do the best they can with what they have available and what they were taught. I am in part more on the avoidance side because of what my parents had going on. My mother had mental health and addiction issues, but also the generation that they were raised in. Their parents were extremely hands-off. So we evolve and grow through the generations. So as a result, people with avoidant attachment experience relational connections as demanding of their resources, and often need to restore their energy and emotional equilibrium by being alone or in quiet. people with avoidant attachment style also often tend to be sort of performative, perfectionistic. They need to be perfect. They are often type A because they were taught in order to get affection or attention, you had to be perfect. So think of if either of these things rings true for your experience in childhood. Okay, next, secure attachment. So a person with secure attachment is typically someone who is parented with the optimal balance of attention and independence, or a better balance, so that they learned that they could go between getting their needs met and taking care of things on their own. So they demonstrate the ability to be both independent of and in connection with their relationships and move between them with ease. Again, not to over idealize being secure, because all people have struggles in relationships. So while, it's sort of an easier way to be, everybody struggles. So all attachment styles can be healthy, and all attachment styles can form healthy attachments with their partners. It's not needed for each individual to be secure in order to form a secure functioning relationship, to have a close, connected, loving, healthy connection. It's not necessary. And so I've met a lot of couples who try to get me as the professional to make their partner go to therapy to work independently on their attachment. And the reality is, attachment is shaped through relationships. It's not shaped by myself. So I can't go to therapy and become securely attached. I have to do that with my partner. So trying to get your partner, not that I'm anti-therapy for individuals, because I'm a therapist and I think everybody deserves a therapist. It's like a massage for your brain or your heart, but you don't need it in order to form a healthy relationship. You're better off to get relationship coaching or relationship therapy if you want to form a secure functioning relationship. And the key is in understanding and accepting the needs of all three of you, your partner, and your relationship. Okay, so I alluded to this. Often you see attachment styles on a spectrum. Here's a pie. There we go, a pie chart. And really, you should imagine this as a sphere with across the x-axis, geometry, it's been a minute, the horizontal axis, low anxiety versus high anxiety from left to right, and then from top to bottom, low avoidance, high avoidance. And then you have these different frames of different attachment types. And again, most of us are ish. We might be avoidant-ish, between, if it's a spectrum, and if it's a sphere, you're somewhere between, you're a little bit avoidant and you're a little bit anxious, or you're really avoidant but not very anxious. So you can be anywhere on this circle. And again, you don't need to get into that all green area in order to have a healthy relationship, and neither does your partner. And the only way to get into that green area is together. Okay. So now the fun part, I get to lead you through an exercise. So if you came solo to this workshop, which lots of people tend to do, they want to watch and then they want to bring it to their partner. You might be bored for a second, but you can do this yourself. You can just close your eyes and just use this as a meditation. But you'll get the replay of this, and you'll get to do it with your partner. And I encourage you to do this together. Let me take a sip of water so I don't cough. So get yourselves comfortable facing each other. First things first. And one of the things I do with my couples, both in my office when I see them in person, or when I have them one-on-one, one-on-two technically, on Zoom, because I work with couples around the world, is I have them play with the right amount of distance and connection. And this is an exercise where you're working one-on-one with me, we would play with. It's called Towards and Away, where we notice the physiological reactions when you move closer, because one of the truths, and this is both related to attachment and to neuroscience, so you're getting a little bonus information here, is that if you're paying attention and you're in eye contact, you will have a physiological reaction differently when you get close to your partner by your own volition, by moving yourself closer, than you do when your partner moves in closer to you. It feels different to give a hug than it does to get a hug. They're physiologically different experiences. And when that interacts with our attachment style, if you're on the avoidance side like I am, and getting a hug can sometimes be overwhelming, my experience of giving a hug doesn't cost as much as it does to receive a hug when I'm not in the mood or in the space to receive a hug. So the same is true. So without going into spending too long on this, play with the amount of distance between the two of you and check on each other. Notice where you see your partner looking better, same, or worse, like if you get too close, and sort of just get into adjustment and get into a position that is comfortable that you can sit in for a couple of minutes. You are, the sort of optimal distance for the sort of neuroscience, the neurobiology of connecting is knee to knee, or interlocking knees, so that you can really see each other. And so just take a second and come into relaxed eye contact together. Anybody that has downloaded my free guide knows the sort of eye gazing exercise where I talk about relaxed eye contact. You're not staring at each other. You are just gently in each other's gaze. And so come together, face each other, come into relaxed eye contact, and take a few breaths together. Ignore the weirdness of being in a Zoom or watching a recording together, and just breathe together for a moment. And as you gaze at each other softly, come into awareness of yourself as you breathe. Feel your body. Maybe feel your ass in the chair. Maybe feel the breath moving in and out. Feel the temperature, if you're hot or cold or comfortable, your feet on the floor. Just notice your body as you sit there. Next, as you continue softly gazing at each other, shift your awareness to your partner as they breathe. See if you can feel in your body their breath moving in and out as you notice it. This can be sort of meditative. Just notice the breath going slowly in and out. And now, imagine in your mind's eye your partner as a small child. Knowing what you do about their experiences, imagine sending them love to that small person in the way they needed it. Maybe they needed a little bit more care and affection. Maybe they needed a little bit more consistent discipline and guidance. Whatever they needed that they didn't get, just send it silently to them. A wish that they'd gotten what they needed. And notice how this feels as you send this to your partner silently. The reality is, you are here now, obviously, and you carry the lessons taught to you from long ago. Those lessons are wired into each of you. Your love for each other that you are demonstrating by coming to this workshop or watching this workshop at home can shape how you each want to be now and in the future. And just stay in eye contact now. And when you're in eye contact, you don't need to be constantly looking at each other. You can look down and look away. But because you'll get the replay of this, you don't need to watch this as we continue. I encourage you to stay in eye contact together and see what happens. Notice if your body heats up, as it sometimes can when we're co-regulating. That was the word I was looking for a minute ago. Our brains can actually heat up when we're in eye contact with one another. Do you get silly? Do you get uncomfortable? Can you sit through it and notice what happens and how you feel together doing this? And now I'm going to encourage you. If you were one-on-one with me, we would go through this. You would be looking at each other and I would be having you discuss this. So since you are in the privacy of your own home, no one can hear you, talk together about this and hit pause if you want to elaborate. Take as much time as you want. What was your partner taught about affection in their parents, from their caregivers? What were they taught about attention, communication, discipline? What were they taught? And was it taught explicitly? You don't speak up unless asked. Or was it taught implicitly? It wasn't stated as a rule, but they got punished if they didn't do it. Or they were shamed, or they saw their parents fight about such things. How were they taught about affection, attention, communication? Were they taught that you only get it if you were perfect? You didn't get it if you made mistakes? What were they taught? And share this. You are talking to your partner about your partner. I think you were taught this, and then check out what you think and invite them to share. And so take turns with that first question. Next, because I'm not watching you guys, I'm not seeing this unfold because I'm doing this with privacy in mind and I'm recording it for other people. Next, talk together about what your partner, so you took turns with that, and now take turns answering the next question. What did your partner learn and experience around their needs? Did they have someone to count on? Was there a consistent person they went to when they were scared, when they were sad, when they were hurt? Who was consistently caring for them? Was it a mom or a dad or an aunt or a grandparent? Who was consistently loving and supportive to them? And if no one, what do you imagine that was like? Did they have to earn attention? So talk together. Talk to your partner about what you think their experience was, and then check, is that true? And then switch. And notice as you go through these questions, what comes up for you? How do you feel hearing this? And what pieces are you putting together? And so next question, how did their experiences shape how they behave now in relationship? Do they feel like they have to be perfect in order to get your care, get praise? Do you and your partner struggle about accomplishments and participation? Well, how does it come alive? How does their experiences, how do your experiences talk together about this come alive in relationship? I think we struggle around money because you were taught this and I was taught that. I think we struggle around intimacy because I learned to be very vocal about my feelings and you learned to shove yours. So we struggle about that. All of the patterns you experience in your relationship around needs acquisition can be traced back to these things. And so having that understanding will help you create a plan. Okay, so next, how do our needs and need expressions work well together? How do they not? You don't need to answer all of these all at once. You can take a break and come back to it. But these questions are important and they will help you. And next, what do we need to do to help each other feel safe and loved today? How can I make you feel more safe and more loved today? More hugs, more gratitude, more expressions of care, more acknowledgement, more acceptance, more encouragement to be yourself. What do you need? And both of you should be answering that question, because a secure functioning relationship is mutual and reciprocal. So it doesn't work if just one of you is doing this. And then finally, how will understanding our partner's experiences and skills help us be a stronger couple? I think if I understood you better, I would be more compassionate. I think if I felt more understood, I would relax a little bit, talk together. And when you do this, work to really listen to your partner's experience without interruption and without commentary. Listening is one of the things that's very hard for people, and very few people were taught how to do this going back to childhood. We tend to be in a race to share our own experiences, but the reality is you can't listen to your partner and respond at the same time. So if you find yourself thinking about what you want to say in response, you've stopped listening. So practice really listening when your partner is sharing about this. Again, if you are just, I don't even know if I have couples in front of me or just individuals who are watching. So in either case, I sort of sped through those questions because I don't know. When you will all get the replay. And so you can, fast forward to, I don't know what time it will be, but you can fast forward to this and go through this together. Okay. Moving along. So next, what do you need? What does your relationship need? Given the understanding you have just taken the time to develop, one of the goals in a secure functioning relationship is to have each other's owner's manual, like your cars or washing machines. I'm newly in love with my washing machine, having just been away from home for 4 weeks. Having a washing machine to have clean clothes is just so amazing. Anyway, more information you didn't really need. Having the knowledge of what makes your partner tick, how to understand and support them in being and becoming their best selves is the owner's manual that you want. It's sort of like, if a light goes on in your car, you get out the owner's manual and turn to, the index of, warning lights, and then you go to the page and you read about what to do. Imagine having that for your partner. If you have a look if your partner has a look that tells you they're upset, and having a page like, looks like it's going to pop out, go to page 16. Oh, offer them a hug. This is sort of the goal that I work with my couples in creating the owner's manual of how to help your partner feel as loved as possible, as accepted as possible, because when someone feels accepted and loved, they don't need to act out. They want to reciprocate that. We end up in competition for our needs, which never works. And instead, I help couples know to proactively take care of each other's needs, because it creates a positive feedback loop rather than the negative feedback loop that's going on. So these are the benefits of developing the owner's manual for each other. So this is particularly important with each other's relationship needs and behaviors. How do you each function best in relationship? And this comes down to these 3 areas most. What soothes your partner when they are too agitated or upset? What helps bring them down? An ice water, a hug, a little space, some music, a walk. What are the things that calms them when they're upset in the relationship? I mean, and in life in general, because if they come home from work and they're all agitated, you want to help them calm down, because otherwise that evening or day is not going to go well. So knowing what soothes them is really, really helpful. What excites your partner when they're down and feeling really blah? What lifts them up? Making them laugh, getting them some exercise, making them a coffee. What picks them up and makes them feel happier and more excited if they're down? And then what are your partner's sensitivities and vulnerabilities? And this goes back to those core emotional needs. If they were raised in a performance-based household where they had to be perfect in order to get any affection or praise, those folks are going to be naturally defensive and sensitive to criticism, because that's what they experienced a lot. Knowing that helps you know that if I need to give them feedback, I need to offer it in a particular way, so I don't trigger that sense that they have to be perfect. So knowing these sensitivities and vulnerabilities to criticism, vulnerabilities to being left. If a kid spent way too much time alone and is afraid you're going to leave, if that was your partner's experience, they might be sensitive to when you leave for work, when you go on a business trip, when you go out with friends, when you go to play golf, whatever it is. And so it's not that you don't go on those experiences. It's that you let your partner know, I love you and I can't wait to see you at the end of this day. And doing all of these things acknowledges the need, references it as important, and helps your partner feel loved. Being able to answer these questions will help drive how you support each other, help you inform what works. Because couples will often flail about. I had a couple that were married 35 years, and the husband had brought the wife flowers every week. Isn't that sweet? In my office, and it was the first time they'd done counseling, it was learned that she didn't like flowers. And okay, who are we upset with? The wife for not saying that she didn't like flowers, or the husband for not noticing that she didn't like the flowers? So you want to know what works, because that is a fast track to meeting a need. It makes your job a lot easier. Okay. Using understanding as power. Now that you have deeper understanding of who your partner might be, or now that you know what to do to have deeper understanding, if you are here alone or you're watching the video replay, what behaviors or challenges come to mind? What behaviors that challenge you come to mind? So they're late persistently. How does that relate to attachment? Well, that could be what they learned about time. It could be that they have a performance thing about work, and so they stay late at work because they feel like if they don't do their job perfectly, they're going to get fired. It can be any number of things, but any behavior that is challenging to you has a source that is often based in what we were taught, which I relate back to attachment. And so knowing that, how does this understanding about your partner's childhood experiences shape how you see those behaviors? Knowing that your partner is controlling about money, or really nitpicky about it. These are all very judgy words. Knowing that comes from being food insecure or housing insecure as a child, or because their parents were really punitive about about money, irresponsible money spending. What does that do for your understanding of that behavior? My hope is And my belief is that this will lighten the intensity of the conflict as you have some compassion for the fear or the shame that drives most all of our problematic behaviors. Often these problematic behaviors are adaptations. They're ways to address the fear we feel, or the shame that we feel. Now, that's not absolute. There are other feelings that we may have, but those are two big drivers for our coping skills. And most behaviors are coping skills to address one of those feelings. So what need is that behavior attempting to meet? And what do you need to do for them so that they do not need to do that? If there's a behavior that is an attempt to meet a need, how can you help them? How can you support them in not needing to do that and getting their need met in a healthier way? And what does this new vision shape how you want to work with this? And you're both going to have lists. You're both equally difficult, whether you are secure, insecure, avoidant, anxious, whatever style of attachment you have, you're both difficult to live with. I say this as someone that's very difficult to live with. I know none of you can imagine me being difficult to live with. I am so perfect. And then we have been talking a lot about your needs and your partner's needs. There's a third entity that is your relationship's needs. There are three of you in the relationship. And that third part is the formation of the two of you coming together. So how can you use your new shared understanding to support your relationship? And what do we need to do to practice this? What can we bring our offers to each other to support the sense of acceptance, freedom, and love for one another? And what messages and gestures carry the most power? So taking it back to give you an example, for someone who is afraid of being left, for example, because maybe their parents left the family when they were 4 and never showed up when they were supposed to for visitation, they're continually going to be afraid that they're going to be left and abandoned. That person may need reassurance that you're always going to be there. I would never leave you. I'm here for you. I'm right here. I'm with you. These are the messages that get into the part of the brain that get impacted, which is the amygdala. It's not the smart part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. It's the emotion center of the brain. You want these messages to be short, like 5 words or less sentences. I will never leave you. I love you forever. I'm here. These are very short. Don't go on and on and on, because when you start to string many words together, it trips into the logical, analytical part of the brain, and it's trying to make sense of the words that are being used. You don't want to do that, because that's not the part that's upset. The part that's upset is the amygdala, pointing to the different parts of the brain. So now I'm going into neuroscience, because all of my work, my coaching program, is built on attachment theory, neuroscience, and arousal regulation. Not the fun kind of arousal, the nervous system fight or flight kind of arousal. Which are the 3 things that drive our relationships, are those 3 areas. So anyway, find the gestures: a hug, a hand hold, eye gazing. I love you so much. I will never leave. Find the things that pack the greatest punch and use them when needed. Okay. So this concludes sort of the formal part of the attachment presentation. You guys have just invested in your relationship, and I'm really excited for you that you have. I want you to ride that experience. I want you to take note of how it feels, assuming you went through all of it, even the boring parts, even the parts that you knew, even the parts that I lost you. Go through all of it and see how you feel having spent this amount of time together. It's going to be an hour and a half that you will have spent together, maybe a little bit more when you do the exercises. And keep investing in your relationship. Because the reality is you can either pay with time put into the relationship, or pay to clean up. It's a pay to play system. So we either are investing proactively to prevent problems, or we are cleaning up the problems. That's the only two ways we spend time in a relationship. Time invested to go on a hike together, or go on a date, or have a conversation, or risk being honest, or hold hands, or take 10 minutes before you go on a golf trip, for example, or a girls trip, or whatever. Not that a golf trip isn't a girls trip. A girls trip's just a, expression. It may feel like a hassle, but when you don't invest that time, when you get home from that excursion, you've got attitude, or you've got frustration, or you've got resentment, or you've got trouble from not investing that time. So I want you to invest in your relationship proactively, learn the system to take care of your relationship so you have less problems. And I see that I have questions, so I'm going to get to those as soon as I get to the end of my slides. So relationships are constantly evolving. As we change and grow as individuals, we don't stay the same. As our life changes, as we move through our career, as we move through, maybe we have a family, maybe we get married, maybe we move. And as we go through challenges, our relationship is constantly evolving and growing. The evolutions that a relationship takes require care and adaptation. You have to change with it, or you leave your relationship behind. So take the time to talk together about what your unique relationship needs. Every relationship is different, and there isn't one right way to be healthy. There are a million different ways to be healthy in relationships. So I work with all kinds of couples, polyamorous couples, non-habituating people that live in different states continually, or in different countries even. There are many different ways to have a healthy relationship. And so you want to look at your unique relationship and what it needs. Needing support for your relationship does not mean there is a problem. Do you need new routines or habits, a book or a course, coaching or a retreat, or therapy? That's sort of in rank of intensity of support, or intensity of effort. So get support that fits your relationship. Getting support prevents problems and creates growth. Intimacy, connection, and growth as a couple does not just happen. You have to make it happen. So then reach out if I can support you further. I have workshops that are free, digital courses for sale. That's coming soon. They're in preparation, coaching programs and retreats. I was just in Italy scouting. There is going to be a retreat in October 2026. I'm so excited. I'm about to sign a contract. Anyway, all right, let me answer my questions. Always at their phone. Okay. Okay. How can you asked where their eyes were. Before the exercise. Got it. Okay. Thank you, Charles. Yes, phones are a huge problem, and a source of a lot of disconnection for couples. We have all become overly reliant on phones. The pandemic certainly did not do us any favors, because screens became a source of connection, but they're not a very healthy source of connection. They lead us into disconnection. And so one of the things that is really helpful is to have time with phones and time without phones. One of the challenges here is that the way we communicate that can often cause more problems. Saying you're always on your phone is likely to elicit a defensive response versus I miss you and I really love to connect with you. Can we put our phones away for a little while? That sounds more like an invitation. That is more of an invitation, and may elicit more of a positive response from your partner. So if you want to have connection without phones, try inviting them. How can we say never? So Charles, can you say more about saying never? About wanting to say never? Oh, got it. Got it. Yes, thank you. Okay. I really appreciate you asking this, because I knew this question comes up a lot, because how can you say never if someday you're going to die, or someday you might actually leave? So this comes down to something that's called reality phrases and security phrases. And the example, the analogy I use is, if your kid, if you have a kid or a niece, nephew, whatever, asks you, are you ever going to die? You can answer in reality to your 3-year-old, or you can answer in security. The reality, the truth is, of course, you could sometimes leave. But the answer that is going to create a sense of safety and security is the security answer. Because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You could get hit by a bus, but there's no point discussing that and alarming each other with that reality when that's out of our hands. For today, your plan is to never, ever leave. Now, if it's a lie, if you know you're leaving, I don't recommend lying. Then I recommend definitely finding a therapist. If you're not being honest with your partner about your plans to leave, find a therapist to help you be honest with your partner about your plans to leave. So I'm not recommending lying. So if you are continually thinking about leaving, you need to have a serious conversation. But if you're not actively thinking about leaving, then I recommend offering the phrases that soothe the emotional part of that brain, because that is not the logical, rational part of the brain. So it is, okay. Yes, it is for intention, and it is for connection. I mean, if you have made a commitment to each other, if your intention is to build a healthy life together, one of the things that's necessary to build a secure functioning relationship is that sense of security, and is that sort of promise that I'm going to do whatever I can to keep our relationship healthy. The point at which it's determined that I don't want to do that anymore, I'm not going to keep doing that, but my intention is to do whatever it takes to make our relationship healthy. And that may mean saying I'm never going to leave. If you know you don't mean that, then yeah, you need to have a conversation about that, because I don't want you promising things to each other that you don't intend on keeping. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. I think all of the questions so far have been answered. And anybody else have questions before I let you all go? Cool. All right. Well, once again, so it wasn't an hour and a half. Did I talk too fast? I sometimes talk too fast. This was a lot of material. Hopefully it was really helpful. I will probably send a evaluation out, like a survey, asking what you liked, what you didn't. I really value all feedback, positive and negative, because it helps me grow and learn to be a better presenter and teacher on all of that. So if there are parts that you found really helpful or unhelpful, please let me know, confusing, whatever. If you have questions, feel free to email me further when you watch this with your partner. And I am available if you want more support for your relationship. like I said, our relationship is as healthy as we make it, and investing in a relationship always pays off. All right. I am, how am I gonna wait? Nope. How do I do this? Oh, I know what I do. I stop recording. I'm stopping